Sorry.
Hi everyone, we are back. We are back with Paul, who's playing with something. Like seriously, come on, man. Just do something with your hair. Come on. That looks like your code a lot.
I'm setting the usual standard then.
Hey Elbic, how are you doing?
I'm
Still
good,
alive.
thank you.
He's
Yes.
still in there. He's still in there.
Yeah.
All right, and we also have, our AI resident, Mr. Parker. What up, Brian?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. Don't
Awesome.
know what makes me a resident other than being here every time.
That's it. That's all it takes. Show up and show up. Believe me when I tell you, these days even showing up apparently is a skill. Like I've seen some companies where they say, well, he shows up. It's like what? It's a job. What do you mean he shows up? Hey, Mabruk, how are you? Okay, so let's see where we're at. A lot has been happening. I've seen a lot of people kind of creating pull requests, issues and stuff like that. And I had a really productive conversation with, um, I hope I'm saying the name, Gaminder, and we basically, kind of highlighted few things. We want to become more organized, more systematic. If we say we are a standard community, then the way we even issue, or write our issues or document the things that we want to do needs to also follow a certain standard and certain guideline. And he's a pretty cool guy. He basically, took this to heart, and he was basically, you can see him creating the milestones and all that. If you look at the issue, you will find this particular documentation. This documentation is extremely important. Here's the, the and the idea that came into my head, while I was kind of on my travels over this weekend. A couple of things that I realized. If we continue to do the same thing with the same people, then we are not growing. We are not growing. Like if Elbic is doing brokers, foundations, clients, and acceptance, integrations, unit tests, and all that every single time, the project will be done. It might be done a little bit even faster, but we'll still add the same amount of engineers that know about the standard before and after the project, and that's a huge loss, right? Because that basically means the whole purpose we're open sourcing these projects, the whole purpose we're making this is to bring more and more people to be able to play with open source. A lot of people are scared shitless from open source because have you seen some of the open source projects out there? You have no idea how to start. You have no idea how to contribute. And if you open an issue or open a PR, you're gonna get bombarded with 50 comments. The people that are saying, what are you talking about? And this is not feasible. Oh, let's delay it for the next iteration, 2 months down the road. It just open source is still a little bit not very friendly to people who are still trying to find their way, in the tech industry or in general in technology and the open source space. What up, Gregory? So that's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to press on is, so I started to kind of, think about a new policy for our community, right? If you create an issue, you can't take your own issue. You can't have your cake and make it too, or eat it too. You can eat your cake and have it too, right? You just can't, right? If you are very knowledgeable and you know that there is an issue that needs to be addressed, what I would want people to do is to kind of find somebody to explain that issue to them and kind of guide them and mentor them into delivering that issue. That's the only way you'll be able to kind of deliver that. Paul, I'm muting you for a second because there's some background. Okay. So there's that part. If you know something and you want to write an issue, find someone to pick it up. So let's just assume that, Paul is creating a bunch of issues and Brian is creating a bunch of issues. You can, take each other's issues, but you can't take your own. You can't work on your own. And this policy enforces more communication, more conversation between engineers, and more. I want people to see how principal level and senior engineers interact with each other, how they bring people in, how they bring people into that community, right? This is important because otherwise the community just doesn't grow, which is pretty much the situation in most of the corporations that I've seen throughout my life, right? You go into a team, The team already have a bunch of seniors. You feel like an outsider. You feel stupid. You feel that they know everything and you know nothing. And when you ask questions, you get mocked and made fun of, or you get these little kind of snarky looks and snarky comments like, well, you have to read the documentation and all that kind of BS that makes junior engineers feel less. And they even make some of them even quit the entire industry, in general. Like I've seen a lot of people just quit the entire industry in general. It's not a coincidence, that there is an entire group of people that you will see. There's many, many groups of people, and entire groups of people just do not even try to get into the tech industry from the snarky and toxic, environments that gets created because of people who think they know something when in reality they really don't know much. Um, what is this? I've never seen Alexander before. Good morning from Portugal. Wow. Hey, God bless you for sharing such amazing. Yeah, thank you for joining in. I appreciate you. Thank you, Alexander. And Mabruk is saying, and do not merge or review your own PR. That's right. You can't merge your own PR unless it's me. But yeah, you can't merge your own PR. That's just if you do that, that just doesn't make any sense because you really didn't get the feedback from the community. Remember this. I want to press on this. It's really important to me that you know this. You know, we are building this in the open and we're recording these sessions so more and more people get comfortable building end-to-end features. What I'm trying to say is that if you're part of this stream and you've gone through the end-to-end with me, right? Technically, you should take that knowledge and help someone else do the same thing. Just go help someone else do the exact same thing. Just like you saw how I did it, you do it too. And if we do that, our community will grow. A lot of people will learn engineering standards and guidelines, and then we will all be happy because we'll have more and more people that are able to kind of share that knowledge and whatnot. There's always someone out there that could use our help. We just need to find them, right? Elbic knows about this. He runs into junior engineers, all the time. People that be like, how do I start? What is this GitHub thing? How do I get there? Believe it or not, the person who taught me GitHub was like 10 years younger than me. He's just a smart guy, right? And he was like, hey, how come you don't use GitHub? And I was like, what the heck is that? Teach me that, I bought him C# for Dummies, and he taught me everything I know about source control. That's how the world works. Puneet said, good morning, Hassan. Good morning. Nice to meet you from LinkedIn. All right. So with that in mind, there is some outstanding issues that well, before I do that, does anyone have any comments, anything at all, any suggestions about this new approach or policy that we're following?
I'm good with that.
You're okay with that? Yeah.
I'm good with it, even though I'm guilty of it. So I'm good.
I'm guilty of it too. I go create clients instead of just pulling someone on the team. Like I could have easily let Yusuf or Ricardo or someone do client because they didn't do client before. But I got too carried away. This is more like me talking to myself and saying, hey, well, good. Oh my God, good for you. You got the client done in like 10 minutes. But is that really a win? I don't think so. I think our real win is when our software is impacting. I was just, posting this the other day. I said, I don't care how many customers use my software. I care how many engineers will benefit from learning from it and grow with it and all that. And that's really the trick there, right? Now, speaking, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have an idea. So I have around 25 engineers, junior engineers, who are trying to learn and push to the OpenAI. So what I can do, based on your feedback, I can just spin up my own live streams, in Uzbek language, so that a bunch of dudes of mine just sit around and just contribute to this project.
I would love nothing more than that. I would love nothing more than, look, dude, if I get out of my house tomorrow and a bus hits me, right? This is over, right? Because nobody's taking this and replicating it and growing it. The most important thing, and I always say this in every job I go to, I make myself replaceable, dispensable, because if you want to be part of the machine like a cog, you will never grow. You will never, ever grow. And I've seen people that stay 20, 30, 40 years in the same organization, same job, doing the same thing. and they think that they're growing. And once they get laid off or kicked out, they're homeless. They're purposeless. They don't know what to do with their life. It's a very sad way to live. Always change. Change. You have only one life, right? So change. Try different things. Talk to different people. That's what this stream is all about. So by all means, I would love, love, love. First of all, if you're gonna lead that community, go ahead and you saw how I create the issues. You saw how I document the issues. You saw how I create milestones. Own it and run with it, right? But if I see you writing the code yourself, we're gonna have problems.
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna do that.
But of course, you're gonna have to pair with people. Like your participation in the commit history, that tells me mentorship. That tells me a lot more than just, kind of getting the job done. We're past getting the job done. We want to get it done right, and we want to get it done beautifully. That's the point.
Yeah.
Okay, Mabruk says, I guess if you add the project to get file, this will help. No, yes. I need to stop being lazy. And actually, there's like 5 projects that need to be added to get file at this point. It's crazy how I made it kind of elastic. So its cost and consumption is increasing over time because it's growing up like this, right? So, hey, Mau Mau. All right. Okay. So speaking of people who haven't done much things before, why don't we just pull Wardy at this and tell him what we're gonna do?
How did I know that was coming?
Look,
6 a.m. I make the effort to turn up. I figured that was enough.
Bloody hell. If you're gonna show up on the stream, I'm gonna call you out and you're gonna be writing some code. This is look, writing the code part, okay, I got that. I can do that on my own, right? But the fun part is when I just call someone out on a live stream like this and be like, oh, hey, you wanna write some code?
Between you and Mabruk, I reckon there's a conspiracy going on here.
Oh yeah, we're plotting. We're plotting. One from Germany, one from America. History repeats itself, huh? Anyway, so Paul, we want to do fine tuning stuff. What do you think about that?
Fine what?
All right, Parker, tell us what this fine tuning is. Give us the theory. Come on, tell us something. The elephant is out of room. Oh, you're on mute, Brian.
I'm not very strong myself. So basically, you're taking a model and you're telling it, yes, say this is what we want you to do, but we want you to do it in this sort of context. So there's sort of it builds all these trees based on the new sort of rules, and so you got to build these fine tunings by passing in the text. Then the text comes back as a fine tuning, and then you can use it. Then you can use it on top of the other models to always have the new fine tunings, the new knowledge, you could say.
Exactly. So just kind of, bring this into perspective for people in a more visual way. Imagine this. Remember how we started this. We said, hey, we have data. We have some data, and that data went through an algorithm. So we put in an algorithm in here. So that's your algorithm that processes that data. So here's the data. Here's the algorithm like this. And we basically this is your algorithm. And what came out from the other side, which is the most expensive thing, the most important thing, which is what we call the model. The model is the exposure layer for all that. So the algorithm is the smarts, the data is the dependency, just like the tri-nature of everything, and then the model is the outcome, right? And based on that model, these are the ones you hear about all the time. The llama model. Oh, Bard has its own model. Oh, there is this, Da Vinci model. There's the Babbage model and Ada model and all that. That's how really, this whole thing happens. You gather a lot of data, you put it through an algorithm, and then you produce that model. But sometimes the model that you have in hand is not enough. You want to kind of tweak it a little bit. You want to do some tweaking to it a little bit. So what do? You do the fine-tuning stuff, meaning that you have your own set of data. This is the vertical part. like this, and you go send that data to an API while you tell that API which model you're targeting, and it will go and fine tune that model and create a copy of it for you. So it doesn't change the existing one, but rather use, the existing one to create a third one, right? And this is what we call fine tuning. Like this here is what Sam Altman and his team, the OpenAI team, did. Okay, they produced this, great. Now they're basically going and saying, hey, do you want to change that a little bit? Do you want to fine tune? By the way, if you understand this part, that's the most complex, the hardest part about this whole OpenAI thing. Sending chat and getting a response and getting images and video files and transcription, there's nothing there. This here is the money maker right there, right? So this is where you go send it to the API. What the API is really doing is just calling, the algorithm on top of that model and building on top of it. Okay. And if you understand this theory, that's really all what this is built on top of and what it's relying on, right? You're fine tuning, there's the creation of the model, and then there's the fine tuning of the model. This intersection here is technically what really fine tuning is. So someone might say, okay, give me an example, bring this to reality. What does that mean, right? Elbik, what's a good example of fine tuning that you've played around with? For instance, you were playing around with it with the standard, for instance. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we took the standard book and we have created prompts and completions based on the book itself.
Okay, so
And
there's
then,
something called prompt and there's something called completion. Okay, that's how you fine tune. Okay.
Yeah. So there are two parts. There's this exact format that we need to format our file, and then we will send it to the API. So it has prompt and it has completion.
Right.
And yeah,
what's an example of a prompt? What's an example of it?
So for example, as a prompt, you can say, what is the standard? And you just answer from the first paragraph of the book.
Yeah. The standard is XYZ. So now you're teaching it about this new concept or new thing called the standard, right? Is that how it works?
Yes.
So it's like bringing someone who already have master's degree and you're just adding on top of their existing knowledge, right? Okay.
And then you're gonna have a bunch of these prompts and completions, and you're gonna feed it to the model through the API. An interesting thing is they have built-in CLI for validating and then generating a formatted file.
Nice.
So based on so the format of the file should be not JSON, but it's JSON line. So JSON L, that would be the correct format. Yeah.
JSON L. That's JSON line.
Yes.
That stands for, oh wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's line by line. It doesn't necessarily follow the rules. Let's take a look at what a JSON L is, because that's basically the file, the data that you push in. Let's just go back here. This piece here, if you skip this entire series and stay here, I'm totally okay with that, because that basically kind of summarizes the most important pieces in this. So JSON L OpenAI example. There you go. And then if I go to fine tuning in here, look at what these prompts look like. It's like you're saying, what is the favorite color? And you need to find an ending for it so you can tell the system to tokenize, right? But that's just implementation detail. And then my super favorite color is blue. So you're basically, and there's a lot of research going into this. So please play with this. Please play with this. This is really important. You can play with OpenAI and do that all the time. Elbik, the question that I have for you is, well, they already built ChatGPT. It can answer almost any question. Why do we need fine tuning for?
As Brian said, we need to let the model know about the context of the business we are working with. So for example, for a standard community, the context is standard book and all the related questions, videos and everything. So if we are able to train the model based on that data, our own specific business specific data, a great chatbot, for example, would come out as a result. In the business context, we are going to make a very rigorous, fast customer support, chats. You see in some websites there is customer help chatbot on their landing page, And what it basically does, they have, some scripts that create some HubSpot or Jira tickets and hook up the customer support team, one of the members, and then it's gonna take at least 24 hours or 12 hours.
Takes time.
Yeah. To get answer to that question. But in most cases, customers don't like this experience, so they just leave the page. But if they get an instant answer, for example, what's the pricing, how can we negotiate, and if they get answers to these questions fast, it increases the possibility of getting new customers to that business.
So what you're basically saying,
What
you're basically saying here is that you have the existing ChatGPT can answer generically, just in general questions, but you can fine tune it to make it focus on a specific thing with a knowledge and data and context that's relevant to what you're doing in your space. And that's what makes fine tuning extremely important for businesses, for schools, for whatever, even for us as a community. The standard doesn't really know about the ChatGPT doesn't really know about the standard, right? But then again, you have the Bing bot, like Sharaf was just showing us. They connected it to the internet, right? So now it's automatically fine tuning on the fly. It's like it's pulling data and fine tuning itself on the fly, or rebuilding the whole model. I don't know. Like there's two approaches. There's the rebuilding the whole model, and then there is the the fine tuning. I also have to press on the fact that fine tuning is not the only way. You can program by prompt. Like you literally can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, any question that I'm going to ask right now, you can answer it with true, false, or I don't know. So you're programming by prompt. I call it soft programming. You're basically soft tuning. You're soft tuning it, or kind of mapping it into a particular way. Mao say the tuning process looks pretty intuitive and easy. Luckily, I know what the standard is, or I would be so confused. All right, great.
I believe the tuning process can not only improve its knowledge, it can improve its efficiency. So it can reduce its compute time.
Oh, really? Nice, nice. I did not know that. I thought it would increase because you're adding more. Oh, this is fantastic. So fine tuning. Go ahead, Paul.
I'm a newbie to all this AI stuff. So my understanding is that there seems to be this emerging trend of what we call prompt engineers. And from what I've understood of the very little content on this subject that I've consumed, because as with any emerging market that we're in, we see terabytes of data just come out overnight. What they're doing is they're effectively curating a discussion and asking the bot to perform a role. So they'll say something like, I'm going to set up a company and you're going to be my assistant. And I'm going to tell you what I want you to achieve. And I want you to achieve everything in C#. Go write me a block of C# code for every instruction I give you. And then you would finish it off with say yes to confirm that you've accepted this and you took it in. And that's all you get back as a response. You get the yes back. Then obviously the kind of the next bit is to then add on to that. So what you're doing is kind of, in a sense, that's localized learning the model, right? So from what I understand is the way that the model operates is it has this kind of base knowledge base of data. And when you have a discussion with it, it says, okay, I'll fine tune the model with the contents of this discussion. But there's this additional level to that where you can say, actually, I can fine tune the model with stuff that's potentially come from multiple other discussions, put that in and have a custom version of the model. Now I can have a discussion where I can fine tune the model even further in the context of that discussion. So the thing that kind of stands out for me is potentially the way that we might use it as programmers is I might want to do something like feed it a GitHub repo in some easily digestible form where I can say, you know, when I ask you for a file name, here's the contents of all my files, essentially, one at a time, as JSON-L lines. I'm going to expect you to know about these effectively. And then that, you know, that might potentially become part of, say, like if we were to build the standard model for GPT, anything that we consider standard compliant code as examples, potentially we could feed into the model, and that would allow us to fine tune an OpenAI model that was really specific to the standard.
Yep. We talked a little bit about, you know, GitHub and Gitfile and all that. You know, we could today use AI to do that calculation for us. So instead of me hard coding these rules, I could just fine tune the model with the rules and just set it on, you know, a GitHub repository to go through the commit history and kind of determine, you know, the evaluations. It'll be conversational more than anything. So instead of just making it competitive 1998 kind of style, oh look, I'm better than you, I have more code, it will be the AI basically talking to you and telling you, hey, here's the areas that you could improve on, and that's why. Because we're not machines, you know, we're story processors. We like conversation. This is why ChatGPT is winning so much. But to bring the focus back on this, it seems like in order for you to be able to kind of leverage AI, you can do the hard way, which is not really hard. We're just going to talk about it a little bit, which is to create, you know, your native model from scratch. That's what Sam Altman and the OpenAI folks did, right? And that's what Facebook is doing. That's what every this is the big one. This is where everything starts from having a particular model to start from, and then there is fine-tuned model, right? So that's the part where you kind of, you know, adding in your own content and context and all that. And then the last way you can kind of communicate and map a particular model to your own needs is what I call soft tuning, right? And this is just something I made up. And what I mean by soft tuning is that when you go, let me show it in real life to you, just so you understand. You can literally go like this and say, here is your chat GPT right here. Let me show you this in real life right now. So say for the next few questions, answer only by true or false or I don't know, right? And then I can go now and say, there are so many crazy people in the world. See, like that. So it will only answer with the prompts with only within these. That's what I call programming naturally. Like you're basically programming the model to map its answers to particular sets of things. Let's try something else, like, you know, the Earth is not flat. This is gonna piss off some people, but that's okay. You know, we like to, you know, ruffle some feathers, you know. See, it will only give me the answer that I want. And this is super important. Why is that? Because for you as a software engineer, you can literally go and say, hey, I only want your answers in code. Hey, I only want your answers in these predefined keywords. And you can take these keywords and attach them to actual API calls. We will talk a lot about that when we talk about examples, how you can actually use OpenAI for actual business. And I can't wait to show you like how we can real life scenarios, use cases where we can help and support businesses, you know, increase their revenue, save their costs, you know, or create better decisions using, you know, OpenAI, using our libraries, using the work that we're doing. So this is the whole story, guys. From the moment where a bunch of engineers are exploring OpenAI, all the way up to kind of working with businesses and integrating it into businesses and more core critical operations and stuff like that. But it doesn't stop there. We're going to have to roll back all the way back and build our own offline model. Like we're not always going to be working with OpenAI, right? I want you to run offline, right? I want you to not have to pay a penny and send your data over the wire to some server out there, right? If we claim to be good at something, we may as well understand it end to end. And I talked a little bit briefly about that before. Okay, so Paul, you're going to write some code today. Did you hear?
I can try.
So let me just explain to you what we need to do, and then Elbic, you will be responsible for writing the issues, milestones, documentations for fine tuning, if you would like. If you don't want to, it's
Of
okay.
course. I'm here.
Okay, appreciate it. So Paul, here's what we need to do. Are you with me? Because you're new to this, so you're gonna, first day, we gotta pick up on the new guy, right? You gotta give him a hard time. So here's what we're gonna do. We want to build a model, and Brian is gonna kind of help us a little bit with kind of the guidance here. We want to build an integration point for C# developers where they can do fine tuning, so they can post to that endpoint, and they're gonna post that body here. So training file, validation file, model, in epochs, batch file, learning rate, all of these properties are listed in here. And we want to be able to build a broker that can execute that for us. Our measure of success is to be able to call that broker method and give it a file, and it picks up that file and sends it over the wire, and it gives us back a status like pending or something like that. What do you think about that, Paul? Do you think you can do that?
Oh, I don't know. Sending JSON to an API.
I still can't hear you, but I'm getting some water. Yeah, keep going. Tell me. Complain. Cry a little. Go ahead. Just what the reason for this, I'm taking this as an advantage, like as an opportunity. Okay, how a principal engineer like Paul would start tackling a problem like that, like just off the top. What do you have in mind? Like someone is throwing something that you have absolutely no background on or not, right? Some of it some of it you don't know. Some some answers, and some answers you're not really sure about. What would Mr. Paul Wardy do in that sitch?
By your definition, complain a lot.
That's part of it. Part of the solution.
Coffee delivery.
You got your coffee. What else you need? I gave you the documentation. Your wife gave you the coffee. You got everything you need. You just need to use your brain.
Yeah. So I think the bottom line is I learn by doing, really. So it's a case of write something that can spin up, as we already do, a HTTP client to make the calls.
Yeah.
And then, the stuff that we build on, all we need to do is build a model that reflects what is in the documentation at the broker level. And then obviously any foundational logic will be the real consumer of that. So the broker really just needs to be passed through, doesn't it?
Right. But for the broker, well, I'm seeing here, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we upload the file in here, right? That JSON-L file. It doesn't get uploaded in here. We need to call a different endpoint called files. And that's where we call upload file. So we can't really fine tune until we have uploaded a file and had an ID out of that file. Is that right?
Yeah. Basically, you upload the file, it becomes a blob. The blob gets assigned an ID, and then you can refer to the ID.
Then you take that ID and then you use it for fine. So we can't really fine tune until, and by the way, just so you guys know, I want to simplify this so much for people, especially the people that are trying to learn. So in a processing service or on higher order business logic at some point in time, and we keep that in mind, I want people to be able to go and say, because Joden Hall kind of proposed that idea, we can basically go and say OpenAI Fluent client, right? And then you basically go and say with fine tunes, right? And then add prompt, and you basically add the prompt and completion, and then add another prompt, and you can go on like that, so it's fluent. And then you go and say, I don't know, request async or something like that, right? And what really happens is that under the hood, it creates the file, uploads the file, pushes the file for fine tuning, and you get back the result all in one shot, right? But that's a little maybe V2, right? We're still not even at V1 yet. So it looks like, Paul, what we have to do, the first step to this.
Are you thinking, because there's two calls that need to be made on the API, isn't there? There's
Yes.
one to say, hey, I'm going to fine tune, and there's another one to say, hey, here's my file. So are you thinking a single broker with the two methods on it that
Nope,
can make
nope,
two calls, or
nope.
two different brokers?
Two different brokers. Two
Right.
different brokers, two different foundation services, an orchestration service maybe that will do that. It's up to the user. I mean for this V1, they just have to call the client to upload a file and then call the client again. So the orchestration is happening at the exposure layer on the client side, even beyond our exposure layer. But we need to upload
So
a file, Paul. What are we gonna do? Dummy.
so my thinking is then that we'll have some kind of internal model that we'll accept at the orchestration level. That will get broken down into two external models, which will then be given to the relevant brokers ultimately to be sent off to the API.
Right. So we need to start with the model, right? That's what you're
Yes.
saying.
So we need to know what the two external models are, so we can put those in, and the one internal model, so we can put those pieces together. So starting from, assuming today we're building the broker pieces, let's start from the two external models. So what do they look like essentially? So I think Elbeck's already cottoned on that it's that one of them's basically just going to be a JSON-L file, right?
Nope.
In terms of,
Nope.
no? Is that not what
No, look. It says the file is a string, and you're
Yeah.
basically the name of the JSON lines file to be uploaded. So you're basically passing in file, right? We have that, right?
Right.
And then there is purpose, and this is also required, the intended purpose of the uploaded document. So we want to give people I'm assuming, a model that the external file request will basically have two properties, right? One that says file and one that says purpose. Now, the real question here is, Brian, you might be able to answer this one. Are they expecting us to stringify the JSON-L file? How is it going to find the file? We need to upload the file, right?
According to what I'm seeing on the top right there, you literally do send the file, right?
You send the file.
Yeah.
So octet stream.
Well, I'm guessing so. Have I misinterpreted the use of curl there, Brian? Is that not literally just giving it a path, which would tell curl, hell, here's a file, send it?
I'm just looking at it myself, and it looks. It's not very clear, is it?
It's not,
It's
is
it? We need to somehow upload this file. Like literally, this is not a very clear documentation because what I'm looking at here, okay, what did they do in Python? They basically went and said file open. What does file open do?
So a trick I found, guys, is to go into the playground, and when you go into the playground, you can actually get it to show you the code for the different things, and it even though it's not code we would use, but it gives you an idea of what they're doing.
Right. So if I go into
I'm not
file,
sure if it's got. Not sure.
They don't have that.
No.
They don't have that because that's all happening underneath, right? So what I'm saying still, like if you go back to some of the examples I was playing with, we need to kind of push that. Like, I guess the first step for us is to basically go to Postman and basically see with Postman, can we actually call that endpoint and upload a file, right? Even before Postman, I'm just gonna go and create. This is great. This is, just for the people watching, this is how we're learning, right? We're experimenting, we're trying things, we're seeing how that works. Okay, Elbic, help me out with the format here. Do I just do like open close like this and say prompt? What is the standard? Right? And I need to find anything that makes sense. So if I say like this or 3 times, that's basically my end of line. And then I need to go here and say complete or completion. Completion,
yeah.
completion, right? And in the completion area, we're basically saying something like, oh, I see you sent, I just want to write it in front of people, Elbic. I know you sent me that. So, a set of rules, a set of principles, patterns, and tools to streamline software engineering and I can do 1, 2, 3. It has to be something weird that you end up with, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, and then we just do more of these. Like, do you take a comma like this or no? We don't need a comma, right? So you just do more like this. You just do more like this, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look at the file that Elbic did for with JSON-L. I'll show you guys in a second. Just once. Watch this. This is a real life prompt that Elbic put together. If you can see it, right? And that's JSON-L. That's basically you going and saying, here's my way, you know, all the prompts that we have to do. So, okay, so I have a file, JSON-L, the standard JSON prepared, right? So now what do? I go to the API in here. That's the first step, that we need to be able to run it by ourselves, right? So if I'm gonna go here and say files, that's what they said, and they said post, right? And we need to go pick up the body for this file. I'm assuming it's gonna be a raw JSON. And then I'm gonna go copy that request that they told us about, right? So the request that they told us about is a file and a purpose. So something like this, I'm assuming. So purpose like this. Or is this running through an octet stream? We don't know. We're gonna find out really fast. Here we go. So file like that. So now what I'm saying is if I put the file name in here, that's not enough because it doesn't read that file, right? What I'm thinking that they're doing is that they want to do not form data. There is a select file. You see that select file in here? And you basically go pick up that file and you post it. But we'll find out real soon. So let's go select that file. Here's a file, and I'm gonna go into downloads, and I picked up that file from Elbic. That's the standard JSON prepared JSON-L. Right? So that's that binary. But where do we put that purpose then? Is the purpose just a header that we're passing in? I don't know. We'll find out. Look at this. Invalid content type header application octet string. Expected multi-part form data, which is form data right here. Multi-part form data. File. There it is. Got it. So multi-part form data, you pass in this. So this is your file in here. And then you need a purpose in here. And this, what do we call it, Elbic, for a purpose? What's a good name for it?
Fine_tuning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just fine tuning. It's always going to be like that. So we can't even change that. Like we can't even, okay. So now if I post like this, what happens? Fine tuning. Oh, is it fine tune? Just fine tune like that?
Yeah.
Post. And we have a successful request. Now, the real question is, how do you do form data in C#? Let's find out. Let's find out. Paul, I'm doing your work, by the way, just so you know.
It's too early for me. I haven't had my coffee yet. And my coffee's too hot. Just burnt my tongue on it.
Multi-part. So multi-part form data in ASP.NET. Sure. Let's see here. So if you want to do this in C#, you basically go and say using multi-part form data content, multi-part content, whatever. And then for the multi-part content, you start adding the things that you care about. And then in the response, you basically post async with that. Interesting. I don't think RESTful Sync supports that today, Brian, does it? No, Parker.
He's muted.
Sorry, my headphones are playing up. I went just
I'm
went quiet there
I'm
for a
gonna
second.
change my name in this stream. I'm gonna call myself Unmute Parker, please.
Yeah,
That's what I'm gonna do. So tell me, what do you have? Tell me, how do we do this?
I'm just looking in a code base that I've actually in Blazor. When you upload files, you have to use the same thing. So I'm just actually looking for the code I've used before in Blazor.
You basically have an endpoint, and you say post async, and you pass in this multi-part form data content. That's just fascinating. So how do we even, like, if we were to structure a method to take that in for RESTful sense, what would that look like? Like, what do you offer? You just say, hey, pass me multi-part form data content. And well, if we do that, that basically means that the consumer of RESTful sense is going to have to do business logic, because this here is business logic right here. Instead, what I would like to do is that we pass in a dictionary, and underneath RESTful sense does that work for us. Because you're building a broker, you can't have your broker do this add new string. This is all business logic for you, all of this. And I'm assuming it's not all string content. Like, I'm assuming there's file content and stuff like that.
So what I'm doing with the WASM stuff is each one of them is actually a stream. So,
right.
And you can attach multiple streams.
I'm assuming that the file part, if you want to do it as a file, you basically, stream content right there. Yeah, there you go. And I'm betting this is exactly what's happening there. So
this way you can have files up to 1 gig without blowing buffers and stuff.
Right. So what that basically means really is that we need an issue on RESTful sense. What do we have here? Add post content, put content overloads. What did Catalan do with this? I think he did that. This is different, right? This is him returning an HTTP response message, which I still have some questions on. We need a new issue here where we say, here's a new issue, and we want foundations enable posting multi-part form content. We need to investigate how to support a model that gets converted under the hood into stream content and string content. And this is an open issue, right? The success measure in here is to basically be able to go and say, I can use a method in RESTful sense that will take a certain model. We don't know what that model is going to look like yet, but we need to find a model for it. We can't be posting, just to, add like that. That's not going to work. We need something a little bit more sustainable than that. And it takes that and basically goes and converts it into the multi-part form. Otherwise, it's not really abstract. It's not really doing any abstraction for us. Right? To visualize what I just said, just so people understand, we need RESTful sense to be able to go and say, okay, here is my HTTP client. That's really what RESTful sense says. There's HTTP client, a wrapper and around HTTP client, right? And this HTTP client has a wrapper around it, and this wrapper is RESTful sense. RESTful sense is omitting its own model and offering generic capabilities. Like, it's saying, give me a T, whatever that model is, I'm going to serialize it into JSON and send it for you. Right? And it also emits exceptions that are all localized to RESTful sense. But in a situation like this, with the multi-part form, we need to find some model, some new model that's unique to RESTful sense. And this model needs to allow passing in stuff that gets converted into multi-part form under the hood. Okay.
And you got to handle it as a stream. If you don't, I've seen this code done poorly, and if I've seen with people doing things like copying into memory streams and stuff, and not realizing, these files can be up to 2-3 gig, and doing things like that is consuming a hell of a lot of memory. And unless you pass a stream through to a stream, you end up doing some really silly things in small devices.
Right. So So two things to think about, right? Well, okay, here's the assignment for today, and that's for all of us. We're all gonna try with something like this. Number one, build a successful native HTTP client console app that uploads a file to OpenAI. So we need to get it to work. We got it to work on Postman. Okay, great. Can we get that exact same situation to happen in C#? Okay, so that's number one. We got that part. We need to implement this in RESTful sense. We got that part. We can now go and build the broker. Doing things right takes a little bit of work and effort, and that's why I'm saying this. This is all. These are the three things, right? Now, someone might say, where do I post this? That's for people watching us. Where do I post something like this? Let's say I figured it out. Where do I post it? Just post it in the standard community, in the OpenAI channel, right? Go there and say, hey guys, I got it to work. Here is my code. Whoever announce it first, that means the rest of us need to stop and move on to the next stage as a community, right? So let's say, for instance, Paul came in and said, okay, here's the multi-part. It works with HttpClient. Good. Now the next step is to come up with this model that supports that. And I'm assuming like this model is not going to be something too crazy. Like what I'm thinking is probably something like create a model that's like a dictionary, right? And you're passing into that dictionary a bunch of objects, and you're basically going and saying, here's what I have. These are the objects. Here's the dictionary that I have. We could work with the native framework model, but that's too much coupling going on there. That's not what RESTful Sense is trying to do, right? So let's keep that in mind. We need to have our own local model at RESTful Sense level that allows that kind of conversion and communication between a multi-part form and whatnot. Once we figured that model, we go create a pull request and release a new version of RESTful Sense. And just for the people watching, this is how these NuGet packages evolve. They evolve because of an actual need. We're not just sitting here saying, oh, it would be fun if we added OctastStream or something. Nope. That's actually driven truly by some requirement. Once we figure that out, we publish a RESTful Sense copy. We can move on to the next step, which is actually the easy stuff, and let Paul build a broker or something like that, right? Let's just give him the little things. He'll be happy. Okay, so this is the trick, and this is for me and everyone else. Try it out. By tomorrow, if we come here tomorrow and we have at least a console application that works with HttpClient, which I'm assuming is going to be really easy. We just need to kind of play around with it. And I also want the community to come with us on that journey. Build that console application, upload the file, give me the result. Then we get to sit down here tomorrow and discuss what that model that we want looks like. And we're going to experiment with it. Like we're going to create that model and use that console application to see how it's going to convert to it. We figured that one out, we go push it to RESTful Sense. We figured that one out, we tell Chris to publish a new version. And then we go build a broker. And now we're doing the files. Elbic, the one thing I ask of you, create a milestone, create all the regular issues like brokers, foundations, clients for that file upload capability, for the file upload capability.
All right.
I just posted something in on Discord, which is the WASM code that I use.
The WASM code for the multi-part?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. This is post file async multi-part form. Okay, let me copy that real quick, just show it to people. Here is
that's an abstract of it. There's more to it, but yeah.
Yeah, let's see here. Here's the code. It's not colorful and pretty, but it'll do. Here you go. So what are we doing here? We said file upload content, and that's native model, right? HTTP.
No, that's my model. Yep.
That's your model. That's not something comes out of the box with HTTP.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
So the next one down is.
Yep. The next one down is multi-part form data content, and then you take that data content. Looks like there's some hidden things, right? Like add selected files. That's not part of this, right? We need one. We need one that's native HTTP client, Brian. Hey, Tom. Love you too. We need something that is just HTTP client. No models. You're not creating anything. You're just using outside the box, bare bone, basic cable HTTP client. Right? That's the ask. right? And we'll see what that looks like. It will be interesting. But this is good. This is a good start. This just gives me what this gives me the impression, hey, we have the skill set. We have people that actually played around with this. Hey, Lucy. Or no, that's not Lucy. That's
This one's Alice.
Alice.
My youngest.
Yes, Alice is up early.
Oh, she's normally the first one up.
Daddy. I think Alice is the one that has the answers. We don't need to worry about that part. Alice is the one that's gonna build the HTTP client for us.
She's my external consultant.
Yeah, I mean she showed up on the stream. She has to write code. That's the rule.
Yeah, definitely. She's probably better than me, to be fair. Yeah. Okay.
Wow, she has a lot from Paul. Complains a lot.
Yeah. Never shuts up. Runs in the family.
All right, listen, guys. That's the deal, right? That's the trick. And you know, just take a look at the same thing for the community. Elbic, do you want to show the documentation approach from your side? Elbico.
Yeah, let me show. Yeah, let me show you how we will be documenting, or the one approach that we can document our external
models. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is, for example, we want that method to let the end user know which exceptions it throws, right? So here it says exceptions, and we can just copy paste all the exceptions this way. I don't think we need summary for it because the name is very clear.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have here only exceptions that it might throw.
Absolutely.
So if you are using it, it shows the exceptions like this. And
yes.
And we can do summary for all public models as well, just like this.
Nice. And the properties on these models and everything, right?
Yeah.
For the local ones. Go ahead.
That XML stuff, Hassan, you can build it out. There's a whole bunch of various things you can do. So, for example, with methods, you can explain the parameters and all sorts.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wondered, it was something I was going to raise with you, actually. I came up against it a while back, because my view is if you have to comment your code, it's too complicated. But this actually isn't really commenting, it's more documentation.
This is for people who don't have access to the code. That's okay. That's allowed.
Yeah, so particularly at the exposure level, you probably want to set this as a standard that you fill this stuff in, so that you can define effectively what exceptions might be returned, what stuff is accepted, explain the parameters, etc.,
right.
stuff. But if you look at something like this stuff for entity framework, if you hover over any particular entity framework, you get a whole big dialogue that details like the full operation details, like how it works, what scenarios you should use it in. And I think
that's totally allowed, but people going into internal methods for a service or an orchestration service or whatever, and they're telling me retrieves student, that's not allowed. I don't care about that part. But otherwise, I think we should be in good shape. So Elbic, again, feel free to kind of create an issue for documenting this. It's going to be a lot of work, so feel free to break it, right? Like break it by feature, right? Say this is a code rub. We want to document and be very specific. Be very specific. I call it the rubber duck kind of way. Imagine if you're explaining, what needs to happen to a rubber duck. How much detail you're going to go to. How far you're going to go to. There's this guy called, I think, Rob Miles. He wrote a C# book called The Yellow Book, and he called it The Yellow Book after the rubber duck color to tell people, hey, this is me explaining C# to a rubber duck, something that's as simple as dumb as a rubber duck. How much detail would you go to, right? And this is also very common in the tech industry, that kind of terminology and all that. All right, that's pretty much it. We have a homework to do. We need to go figure this out. We need to go do some research, and then we need to update our RESTful API communication library, and then we need to actually build the broker for this. So I'm expecting this sprint is going to be a little bit longer than a regular one, because there's still a little bit of workaround that we need to do to get things up and ready. Okay, friends, cool. And for the people watching us, I hope you kind of got a little bit of insight. Not as much coding as usual, but you need to know what to code and what do you need to do first before you actually start. And usually when Paul joins, nobody writes code anyway. So
yeah, I was about to say that.
yeah, if Paul is here, we're not going to be writing a lot of code. All right.
That's probably about right, to be fair. Sorry. I'm so lazy. I have people for that these days.
Just make sure that these people are real. Do you see these people right now, Paul?
Didn't you know I employ bots to do it for me?
Oh, yeah.
There's one in his lap right now.
All right, guys. Thank you all so very much. I appreciate you. Let's connect again tomorrow. Take care. Peace.